The slap echoed through first class before anyone saw it coming. A white woman's palm connected with a black man's face, her diamond rings leaving a thin red line across his cheek. "Don't you dare touch my bag with your filthy hands," she hissed, loud enough for rows 1 through 15 to hear. The cabin fell silent, that suffocating kind of silence where everyone pretends they didn't see anything. But what she didn't know was that the baggage handler she just assaulted owned the airline, and the 2 words he whispered next would cost her more than she ever imagined. Marcus Webb didn't flinch. He'd felt worse, much worse. Growing up in South Memphis, where slurs were breakfast conversation and opportunity was a myth. But this sting wasn't just physical. It was the same humiliation his grandfather endured in 1960, sitting at that Woolworths counter, waiting for service that never came. History, it seemed, had a sick sense of humor. The woman, blonde 50s, dripping in Chanel, stood there expecting an apology from him. The flight attendant rushed over, her face flushed with panic. "Sir, I'm so terribly sorry, let me—" But the woman cut her off. "Don't apologize to him. He bumped into me. People like him should know their place." Her voice carried that particular venom, the kind that's been marinating in privilege for generations. Marcus watched other passengers shift uncomfortably in their leather seats. Some pulled out phones. Most looked away. That's when he noticed a little girl in 3B, maybe 7 years old, black braids tied with pink ribbons, watching everything with wide, confused eyes. This wasn't just about him anymore. Marcus straightened his tie, Hermes custom-made, probably worth more than her monthly mortgage. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice steady as bedrock, "I apologize if I startled you." The woman's smile was triumphant, cruel. She'd won, or so she thought. But Marcus wasn't finished. He pulled out his phone, and with 2 taps, the entire energy of Flight SA 447 began to shift. The question hung in the recycled air. What was he doing? And why did the flight attendant's face suddenly drain of all color? The pilot's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Captain Rodriguez. We've just been informed that Mr. Marcus Webb, founder and CEO of Sky Atlantic Airlines, is on board today." A pause. Mr. Webb typically flies commercial to stay connected with the passenger experience. The cabin erupted in whispers. Phones came out faster than oxygen masks in a decompression. The woman's face went from pink to white to an alarming shade of gray. She looked at Marcus, then at his cheap suit, actually Tom Ford, then back at his calm, unreadable expression. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Marcus let the moment breathe. He learned that silence is its own kind of power. The absence of words can scream louder than any speech. The woman finally found her voice, shaky now, stripped of its earlier venom. I didn't look like—" She caught herself, but the damage was spreading like ink in water. What was she about to say? That he didn't look rich enough? Successful enough? White enough? The little girl in 3B was still watching, and Marcus wondered what lesson she was learning right now, in real time at 35,000 feet. "You're right," Marcus said, his voice carrying just enough for nearby rows to hear. "I don't look like most CEOs. He paused, letting that truth settle. "My mother cleaned houses in Germantown. My father died in a warehouse accident when I was 12 because his company cut safety corners to save money." The woman tried to interrupt, to backtrack, but Marcus raised a gentle hand. Not aggressive, just final. "I started this airline because I was tired of being treated like I didn't belong in first class, even when I could buy the whole plane." The flight attendant, Simone, her name tag read, stood frozen, caught between protocol and justice. She'd seen Marcus on this route before, always polite, always generous, tipping the crew more than most passengers spent on their tickets. But she'd never seen this side of him, steel wrapped in silk. "Sir," she whispered, "what would you like me to do?" It was the question everyone was thinking. The woman had assaulted the owner of the airline, mid-flight, in front of witnesses, in the age of viral videos. What happens next could change everything. For her, for him, for that little girl still watching. Marcus looked at the woman, really looked at her, past the designer clothes and the panic. He saw something else. Fear. Not just of consequences, but of being exposed. How many times had she done this before? To how many people? In how many places where there were no cameras, no witnesses, no accountability? "What's your name?" he asked. Her hands trembled as she clutched her Birkin bag like a shield. See, Catherine Morrison. The name felt important somehow, like it would matter in the story that was about to unfold. But why? "Catherine," Marcus said, and his voice carried something unexpected. Not anger, but exhaustion. "I'm going to tell you something my grandmother told me when I was 8 years old." He glanced at the little girl in 3B, making sure she could hear too. She said, "Baby, some folks gonna hate you for the color of your skin. But that hate, it's theirs to carry, not yours. You just keep being excellent." Catherine's eyes welled up, whether from shame or self-pity. It was hard to tell. The other passengers leaned in closer. What was he building to? Revenge? Forgiveness? Something else entirely? "Here's what's going to happen," Marcus continued, and the cabin seemed to hold its collective breath. "You're going to take your seat. You're going to think about why you felt entitled to touch me, to insult me, to assume I was beneath you." Catherine nodded frantically, mascara starting to run. "And when we land in Atlanta," he paused, and that pause felt like falling. "You're going to walk off this plane and into a world that's changing faster than you can keep up with." The threat wasn't explicit. It didn't need to be. She'd assaulted him on a plane full of cameras. The internet was already warming up. But then Marcus did something nobody expected. "Simone," he said to the flight attendant, "please bring Catherine a glass of water. And ask Dr. Patel in 2C if he'd mind checking her blood pressure. She looks unwell." Catherine's eyes went wide. Was this mercy or a power play? The businessman in 4A whispered to his wife, "That's the most devastating kindness I've ever seen." Because that's exactly what it was. Marcus wasn't destroying her. He was letting her destroy herself, one realization at a time, while he stayed impeccably, impossibly gracious. The contrast was crushing. The doctor came over, a brown-skinned man with gentle eyes who'd probably experienced his own share of Catherine's worldview. He took her pulse without judgment, asked questions in that clinical, detached way doctors have. "Elevated heart rate," he murmured. "Stress-induced, most likely." Catherine looked at Marcus, then at the doctor, then back at Marcus. Two men of color, treating her with more dignity than she'd shown either of them. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. But the question remained, why was Marcus being so kind? What was his end game? Marcus returned to his seat. Not in first class, but in 12E, a middle seat he'd specifically booked to experience the airline as regular passengers do. The woman next to him, elderly and black, patted his hand. "You handle that real good, baby," she whispered. "But you know she ain't learned nothing, right?" Marcus smiled, sad and knowing. "Maybe not today, Mrs. Johnson," she supplied. "But I wasn't doing it for her." His eyes drifted back to row 3B, to the little girl with the pink ribbons who was now smiling at him. "I was doing it for her." The flight attendant approached Marcus 20 minutes later, holding a folded piece of paper. "Mr. Webb, Ms. Morrison asked me to give you this." Marcus opened it. His face remained neutral, but something flickered behind his eyes. Surprise? Vindication? The paper contained 2 sentences, handwritten in shaky cursive. The passengers nearby strained to see, phone still recording. waiting for the next chapter. What could Catherine Morrison possibly say that would matter now? An apology? A threat? A revelation that would shift everything again? The note read, "My daughter is married to a black man. I haven't spoken to her in 3 years because of it. I just realized I'm the reason my grandchildren don't know me." Marcus folded the paper carefully, precisely. No dramatic response. No grand gesture. Just a man sitting with someone else's broken realization. The elderly woman beside him squeezed his hand tighter. "Lord, have mercy," she breathed. "Some folks gotta lose everything before they see anything." The cabin felt different now. Heavier, sadder, more complicated than a simple villain gets justice story. But the internet wasn't interested in complicated. By the time the plane touched down in Atlanta, #SkyAtlanto was trending worldwide. The video, shot from 3 different angles, had been edited, clipped, remixed. Headline screamed, "Billionaire destroys racist Karen." The full context, the nuance, the quiet devastation of that folded note, it all got lost in the algorithm's hunger for conflict. Catherine Morrison's face was plastered everywhere, her employer identified, her social media excavated. The modern-day pillory was swift and merciless. Was this justice? Or just another kind of violence? Marcus stood at the gate, watching passengers disembark. Catherine walked past him, eyes down, shoulders hunched. She paused, opened her mouth, then closed it again. What could she possibly say? Marcus nodded once. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. They were both trapped in this moment now, this viral story that would define them differently. For him, the gracious black CEO. For her, the racist who learned too late. Neither label was complete. Neither captured the full truth. But truth wasn't what went viral. Drama did. The little girl from 3B ran up to Marcus as her mother tried to pull her along. "Excuse me, mister," she said, voice high and clear. "Are you really in charge of the whole airplane?" Marcus knelt down to her level, that practiced CEO smile softening into something real. "I am. What's your name?" "Zara." She looked at him seriously, way too serious for 7. "That lady was mean to you. But you were nice to her anyway. Why?" And there it was, the question that mattered more than all the tweets, all the think pieces, all the corporate PR statements to come. Marcus thought about his grandmother, about his mother scrubbing other people's toilets, about his father who died because he was disposable. He thought about Catherine Morrison and her estranged daughter, about cycles of hate that break families apart. "Because, Zara," he said finally, "being mean back doesn't make the hurt stop. It just makes more hurt." Zara nodded like this made perfect sense. Her mother, teary-eyed now, mouthed, "Thank you," over her daughter's head. These were the moments that didn't trend, that didn't go viral, that didn't fit into neat narratives of revenge or redemption. As Marcus walked through Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, people recognized him. Some took photos. Others gave him space. One young black man in a Delta uniform stopped him, voice shaking. "Mr. Webb, thank you. My supervisor talks to me the way that woman talked to you. Every day." Marcus pulled out his business card, wrote something on the back. "Email me Monday. We're always hiring." The young man's face crumbled with relief, with hope, with the wild possibility that maybe, just maybe, the world was changing. But was it? Or was this just one good moment in an endless tide of bad ones? Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from his PR director. "We need to issue a statement. Board wants you to press charges. Legal says we have a slam dunk case. What do you want to do?" He looked at the message for a long time. Catherine Morrison's note was still in his pocket. A piece of paper that weighed nothing and everything. He could destroy her. Legally, financially, Socially, it would be easy and justified and applauded. But he kept thinking about Zara's question. Why were you nice to her anyway? Sometimes the answer to that question defines you more than any business decision ever could. He typed back 2 words, the same 2 words that had changed everything on that plane, though no one knew it yet. The words he'd whisper when Catherine first struck him, so quietly only she could hear. The words that haunted her enough to write that note, to crack open her hardened heart just enough to see the light she'd been blocking out. 2 words that weren't on the viral videos, that didn't make the headlines, that existed only in that single moment between 2 people caught in the eternal, exhausting war of human cruelty and human grace. Forgiven. Already.